All right, should we have an intro or something?
Welcome to the first episode of the Big Tech Guys podcast.
Huge tech guys, by the way.
Yes, we are in fact huge tech guys. We're your co-hosts. I'm John.
And I'm Garrett. We
Man, we
are.
really got to work on this timing.
Yeah. Oh man, we like tech. We like talking about tech. That's why we're starting this podcast.
We also like the occasional politics and ethics. That's also
And it usually gets mixed on into the tech. So
yeah. Everything ends up working out in the end.
I hope it's enjoyable.
First of all, slightly interesting topic. There's the CS:GO StarLadder major going on right now. Basically, you can watch the game from inside the game. It's kind of weird. But the thing is with all the majors in the past, streamers have been able to take that version of the game and stream it on their Twitch channel or YouTube channel at no charges. Valve's been pretty chill with it until this major when StarLadder has been issuing DMCA copyright strikes to basically anyone who has streamed the game. And now in recent developments, they're not only DMCA copy striking, but if you send them a note asking for permission, they require you to log which hours you streamed, how long you streamed, which matches you streamed, and you have to basically provide all of your viewership stats to StarLadder, which seems super weird and doesn't seem like they should have the authority to do that when in the past Valve have been pretty chill about it.
Yeah, ESL has never done anything like that as far as hosting tournaments. And I find that last little tidbit of that's a lot. What's the purpose of giving them all that information? If I some of them things I can understand, like maybe viewer counts, maybe see if you're really because at the end of the day, these hosts are worried about other streamers taking their viewers from the mainstreams. I've seen many point out that they want to watch their favorite streamer and they happen to see it on, or they don't like watching straight up commentary. They like watching a more chill version of it.
Yeah, or you want to watch the major from your favorite personality's point of view, because a lot of these people who are streaming it were like semi-pro players or basically professional players that weren't on a pro team. They were just professional, meaning that they played the game all the time on Twitch for a living. The question is, does a private company like StarLadder have the authority to do something that completely change up the way that majors are streamed by internet personalities? I personally think no, because if ESL doesn't do it, or if Faceit doesn't do it, if all these big majors are pretty chill about the fans of the game streaming the game for themselves, then I don't think a private company like StarLadder should just take it out of their hands and just run off with it.
My primary issue comes with the fact that the people are streaming it off the Go.tv client. I would completely understand getting angry and trying to strike people who are either restreaming their stream or are filming in the venue and streaming from there. I would understand that as well from their point of view, but the Go.tv client has been before said to be fair game, and it's the game itself. It's it just doesn't really it seems like it's not their territory necessarily. If it's being streamed in the game, it's like they're streaming the game itself almost. And it's not like they're streaming they're just stealing their stream or stealing or recording at the event when they want people. They don't it's understandable for 2 out of 3 of those. Not really understandable for Go.tv.
Oh, so this isn't really with broadcasting rights or anything. The observers, so in the game, the cameraman in the game, that's a pretty high position, because the job of the cameraman is to make sure that you never know that he's there. And he covers all the action and he gets every kill. He basically has to know the game inside and out and know what's going on to catch all of the kills. The observers for this major have been god awful. I watched one of the streams. I think it was Astralis Dream Eaters or something like that. The game doesn't matter, but the point is there was one round where they missed every single kill in the entire round. You never saw a kill on stream. And the CS:GO community has been pretty outraged because the observers for the past majors, again, have been insane.
Getting all the action.
It came out today that the observers that StarLadder hired have never played CSGO and are dedicated PUBG observers.
Oh no. That's problematic, isn't it? It only so happens that PUBG happens to be a game that is immensely slower than CS:GO. That jump, I honestly don't blame them, especially if they haven't even played CS:GO, but even still, it doesn't translate over in the slightest.
Well, speaking of broadcasting and going to a more less nerdy side of broadcasting streaming, YouTube today came out with a statement that kind of shocking. I think shocking is really the only way to describe it because nobody expected this to come from YouTube in the first place.
They're the last people I expected to hear from that after their passing decisions.
If you watch any YouTube, you might have heard of this amazing thing called demonetization, which is basically where YouTube has the right to restrict the ads that are shown on your channel in order to keep the advertisers happy. And there's actually a really good interview. I think it's Casey Neistat, and I think it's like the CFO of YouTube that Casey Neistat has on his channel, where basically the CFO of YouTube was talking like, we have to make the advertisers happy, and we have to make the content creators happy, and we have to make the fans happy, and we can't make them happy all the time, so we have to make compromises, which is fair, and I actually agree with that. But the whole demonetization thing has been a huge controversy. You haven't been able to swear in videos without having your ads severely limited, and if you have your ads severely limited, you don't make as much money. Well, I can't find the actual statement today, and this should be taken with a grain of salt because it's reported by Vox, but YouTube said today that it's more important than ever to not restrict what is posted to their site, regardless of whether it's like offensive or whatever. Like the whole thing, the basic was like we need to protect the right for people to create what they want to create.
Either offensive or non-mainstream, controversial.
Exactly.
I mean, I find that very interesting coming from them after their mass demonetizations of basically anything that isn't within a very uh, cookie cutter like template, basically. Uh, as far as, um, but I really think that I really don't know what to think about them saying this.
Well, I think the best example of the demonetization policy, or really just like how out of touch YouTube had become with its creators, was the infamous YouTube Rewind of this year, where it is currently the most disliked video on all of YouTube. I think it's some crazy number of dislikes. But the reason was they did a YouTube Rewind for basically anybody who made them happy and made them a lot of money, and were completely out of touch with some of the stuff that happened like on YouTube that like was big. They basically missed all of the trends and they tried to substitute their own trends in. Like this was what was trending to us and like what we liked, not what the community watched.
Right. And it kind of just went in with the trending tab as well, which is just a bunch of mainstream uh re-uploaded uh skits. Yeah, pretty much just what you said. It's very out of touch. Felt like it was made by people who had no clue about anything that goes on YouTube. They just based it off of what it showed on YouTube popular and trending when you are not logged in.
I hate the name trending tab because it's not like what's actually trending on YouTube.
Right, right. You look at it and you expect to see a bunch of videos with tons of views, but no, videos with sometimes 100,000 views. And the video was not posted very recently. It's not like it's growing really fast. Sometimes it was posted like 2 days ago. They just decided to toss it on the trending tab.
I just think the main problem with it is just you can't call it the trending page if it's not actually what's trending. Like, just rename the page. Like, call it like YouTube Spotlight or whatever, and I will legitimately have no problem with it. But the problem is that you're calling it something that it's not, because not everything on there is actually trending. Hell, Mr. Beast gets on there every time he uploads a video. Granted, his videos are actually trending, but it's like it like automatically puts his video on there. And of course, anything that's put on the YouTube trending page is going to inherently start trending if it wasn't already.
See, that's the whole thing, with it that I find. It basically once you get into YouTube's trending thing, you're basically guaranteed to be trending.
Mm-hmm. And it can be a nice jump start as a creator, because like one of the things I've liked seeing them do is like every day or so they choose like a new creator and they promote that channel's stuff, even if it's like a small creator, and that's like super cool because like it's highlighting like the smaller aspects of the community, and that's super cool. I really think that's a good idea. I hate that they call it the trending page.
I think really something like YouTube Spotlight, like what you said, would be a much more appropriate name. Call it what it is.
Yeah. And I think you'll have like I don't think anybody will have a problem with it. Um, Calling it YouTube Spotlight, because I think that's the main reason people are upset with um with the trending page is because it's not actually trending stuff. You call it something different, then I think that you'll lose a lot of hate for that.
Because I feel like that is the main issue, that people think that it's it feels misleading almost at that point. It feels like
Right.
they're just propping up who they want to prop up. Just call
Exactly.
if you basically call it something like YouTube Spotlight, basically outright saying, "Hey, these are people we want to prop up."
Yeah. Like
Honestly, I feel like a lot of it will be mitigated. Sure, there will be people who are still like, well, they always prop up Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Ellen and all their clips.
right.
And you may be like, you're right, but
But they're not calling it trending.
right,
They're like this is like what they want to show. I think Spotlight just like it implies that like this is what YouTube wants to show to its community, what YouTube likes. And I think if you call it Spotlight, I don't have a problem with it, because then it's just like a glorified Explore tab, and it's like this is what we like to watch. Okay, I'm fine with that. But I could go on and on about how I just really don't like the name trending.
yeah, they did a poor job with naming it, I think, at least for what function it really serves.
Yeah. But back to that statement. The whole thing we got really we got off
A
track
little bit
with that.
sidetracked.
Hey, but it was worth talking about. Oh, I completely forgot about that whole that the Vox journalist thing. Um where the Steven Crowder thing where basically um the Vox journalist Carlos Maza. Did you hear about this?
I am aware of it. I really don't. I didn't keep up with the actual problem.
Basically what happened is Carlos Maza was a or he still is. He's a Vox journalist. He's an LGBT Vox journalist, and he went on Twitter and basically called out YouTube, um, saying that conservative YouTuber Steven Crowder had targeted Carlos Maza with racist and homophobic attacks on separate occasion, which he promptly provided evidence for, whether it was legitimate evidence or not, in a big Twitter thread. He basically said that in this Twitter thread um, that he should not be allowed to be on YouTube anymore. And this was just through like an open tweet that anybody can look at. And then it was almost like like YouTube saw it, and they saw like the popularity it was getting, and they felt like they needed to act instantly. So immediately after that, within hours of this Twitter thread being put up, Steven Crowder had his YouTube channel completely demonetized, with no chance at receiving any kind of ads or any kind of ad revenue. Um, and also, I think it was something something hundred other channels also got their ads completely stripped away from them. Not even not even warranting it, because it wasn't just Crowder. The bigger issue was that there were a ton of YouTubers who lost their source of income. Like that's how Steven Crowder made money. That's how like 100+ people made their money.
Yeah, and my thing is that at least they're not first, at least they're not taking them off the site. But honestly, the main thing, I really think that just taking away their money, like that's not really fair. Even if you like, look, you can completely vehemently disagree with what they're saying, and that is perfectly fine. That's called people with different opinions. But I think taking away their income because of that, I don't know how like credible necessarily. What I do believe is that maybe his fans went went after him. That happens with all kinds of fan bases. You have someone who talks about an issue maybe and say I don't know, example, I don't really have any good ones right now, but basically people will chase at like will go the mob of fans will go chase after whoever is being called out. And even if it was if Carlos Maza was called out by name in a single one of Steven Crowder's videos, which I believe he was, I would not be surprised at all to see him get attacked by his fans. Not because he didn't tell him to, but just because uh, that's just kind of how mob mentality works. And uh, I've seen it happen time and time again on YouTube back in with Leafy and commentary channels. People would get targeted by the fans of these channels. Not that the creators would even say, Don't go harass these people. We're just making fun of them or whatever." And even still, people would go after them. And it's just a product of you have people who like joining a cause or following a kind of a community as far as that goes. I don't know how much sense I'm making here,
No,
but
I got you. I've never seen a video that taught me in quotations to do that, which is what's weird about it. Like it's almost like
no one's commanding these people to go out. They just
it's happening
it's
anyways.
a product of differing opinions and calling out other people for those opinions in the video, regardless of whether you say don't go attack them for their different opinions or their wrong uh, judgment. It happens anyway. I think that's just a natural product of calling out something that to whoever audience it is, they find it disagreeable. They want to go be mad about it or be irritated about it. Sure, they can get it out in the comments, but the best way is to go right to the source. Um, uh, so I feel like that's just an issue with just people in general. I feel like that won't ever not happen as long as there are differing opinions and big figureheads that present them. Uh, I think that's unavoidable, really. And of course, there's a difference, and I really think that that is what they should be preserving, which seems to be what they've said in this. Though they do have their guidelines, things like hate speech and stuff, which I think that it should be pretty clear when someone is spewing hate speech. Personally, I think it is a pretty clear line.
It definitely exists.
Oh, of course it does, but it's pretty. You can tell it's not a Let's go analyze this guy, see if he's actually being hateful in his speech. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You hear it, you're like, okay, that that's hate speech. So,
Yeah.
um, basically, if it's not in the vein of offending personal attacks, that's when you start getting into that range.
Yeah, I really hate to see um like hate speech is awful. Don't get me wrong, but I hate to see people like witch hunt for hate speech. Like I hate to see people like chase after like somebody's whole career because of something they because that's I think that's the main problem if we're talking about hate speech just in general is that there's there's two very different perceptions of what hate speech is.
Yeah, I think just the definition is not clearly defined enough for most people, and it's some people take it more as they've said something that offends me, not they've said something that's like they have said something that is damaging to me personally, either whether it's racially charged, sexually charged, it really doesn't matter. Basically, something that is a direct assault on you as a person, and they're calling I don't know, threats go into that vibe, even if they're still part of that, really. Um, goes into the assault category, I guess. But hate speech is really when it's just, I don't know. I feel like people sometimes brand it as they've insulted me, or they've, I think there is a line that is, uh, at least for me, I feel like there's a line that it's pretty as far as hate speech goes, it's pretty easily discernible what is hate speech and what is not. And while yes, the definition I've kind of given is by technical terms, but on a person-to-person basis, I think that really it's still quite apparent whether it's hate speech or not, typically, or at least it should be. If it's hate speech, it should be pretty apparent.
Well, I think that like you have two like very different sides of like this hate speech issue because you have like I'd consider myself pretty thick skinned. I don't let stuff get to me, and I'm not saying that as like oh if you're not thick skinned like you're a liberal snowflake or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I just think that like you have people that are like relatively thick skinned, and then some people who just like that's not in their character to take like certain like jokes. I don't know a way to say it without insulting people who aren't thick skinned.
It's just it's hard for some people to move on from something like that, which is completely honestly understandable. Some people can just truck through the insults, others cannot. But I feel like hate speech is one of those things that goes past that I have thick-skinned, and it's like, okay, you're like it's not just, oh, you're being mean to me. It's you are just spewing uh language that directly it's like threatening without saying I'm going to kill you, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can't give examples of it because we probably
Yeah,
just get
right,
demonetized.
right. But I think it's pretty. People can clearly like. I feel like when when it's the type of things that when you hear people say them, you go, "Whoa, what are you saying? Like, what do you think you're doing? Why would you say that? You're a terrible person." You know what I mean? Those gut reactions you have, those tend to be more things along those lines. Not, "Oh, hey, that was mean. Oh, wow. Hey." And this is not a really great explanation of it,
No,
uh,
I know I got you.
but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like hate speech should not be too much of a gray area.
Right. It should be something that we can all like. We should all be able to agree that like this is hate speech. This is offensive, but that doesn't necessarily make it hate speech. Like if we're just going off of like a very like if we're just going to define hate speech, I would define it as like something that is offensive, something that is not only offensive but like incredibly hurtful to um a people group based off of race, religion, sexual orientation. I would do the whole logic thing, but you just roasted me for it anyways. Basically, the whole the whole logic thing: race, religion, color, creed, sexual orientation. And I think that a lot of people brand "I've been insulted" as hate speech.
Like, or saying something that's offending is not quite, I feel like, the same. It's because hate speech tends to be more in the brand of assault. It's just like a different type of assault. Instead of maybe expressing action intent to harm, it's expressing just extremely harmful language that's directly attacking someone's core belief systems or core like identity. So, and that's when it's a problem. And uh, basically, relinking this to what we were talking about before, I completely think that that kind of content should be policed on YouTube. But it seems like really the only people who do get policed, at least to an extremely, or at least to a noticeable degree, is people who are just speaking their minds necessarily, uh, having controversial or even potentially offensive opinions. Mostly just controversial, I feel like. But that kind of stuff, I feel like if YouTube is really supposed to be a platform in which anyone in the world can share their ideas and share whatever they want to share, I feel like it would be wrong to suppress alternate ideas like that. Um, even though they may even be in the minority, and of course, that bars things that are illegal. Of course, I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but you know,
For me, it just feels like that the policing has all been done on one side. Like it does. Like I don't feel like I hear about someone on the left getting um, like demonetized for something that they said that could have been hate speech to like let's say Christians. It doesn't happen as much obviously as like something else like hate speech towards like homosexuals and stuff like that. But like I feel like every now and then I see something on like Twitter or something and I just kind of take a step back. I'm just kind of like, wait a minute. Like why are we allowing stuff like that to be said? Why are we allowing stuff like that to be said when like stuff that we're banning is so much lower? Like what's our tolerance level really at?
as long as people are consistent as far as hate speech goes, I'll be okay with it. Or it's just, I will say, uh, well, Twitter is a little bit different. You see people don't get zinged for things on Twitter all the time, on any side of the spectrum for hate speech. Uh, I mean, of course, you see people get taken down on Twitter all the time for stuff like that. But uh, there are still it still gets through their filters sometimes. Especially if it's not as straight up blatant as just a singular word. So, yeah, we kind of got off on a big tangent there.
Yeah, we kind of did. We kind of talked. We
We
went
went
from
to
YouTube
political.
to hate speech. That was our politics section, I guess, for the episode.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it'll not always, but it'll happen sometimes. These types of things tend to be intertwined in almost everything.
Right. So I figure since we've done like tech or I guess gaming, and now we've just done like streaming and politics, I feel like we need to go to the topic that we'll eventually have to talk about eventually. Do video games cause violence?
Who doggy? Short answer, nope, they don't. Um, uh, really, I think the main thing is that I people mistake um people like violent video games. I feel like provide an outlet for certain violent types, which is why you see them either a play these games it only makes logical sense that someone who, maybe idolizes violence a little bit too much would gravitate towards these games. So you can't say that, it's like, it's what caused it. It's more of like that's something they gravitate towards because of their previous inclinations. It's not this was implanted in them by video games, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I think that like one of the things that's kind of pissed me off about it is like I feel like the video games and violence thing is not a recent topic. This has been like I remember like
This has been solved, I thought, or this argument had been put to rest years ago, and it's been recently reignited because some important people started talking about it.
yeah. Well, I just remember like I was in like 7th grade or whatever and I was asking my mom if I could buy Halo for my Xbox 360. And she said no because she had read somewhere that video games caused violence. And I remember like hearing that in like 7th grade and I just kind of was like I don't really agree with that, but I'm probably biased because I play video games. Like I don't see myself as violent, but I don't think anybody really sees themselves as violent. Like you rarely come across somebody who's like actually violent and says like oh I'm a badass.
Well, they're idiots, but they're not really the people you're looking for as far as what they're implying, right? Really, it all comes down to let's just look at sample sizes, right? Let's look at everyone who plays video games on the planet, violent video games on the planet. Basically, a lot of how many on average uh, are going violent after violent video games? It's a really stupid small number, especially when you look at how other countries don't have this problem. Uh, in uh, it's just I'm really thinking. I think I'm just surprised this even came up again and why it's even being talked about again to this degree. It's just you could make a statement that video games are becoming too violent or that they're giving a place for violent people to meet up. Which means sure, I mean the internet has there are violent people that meet up on the internet anyways. So um it's just I don't know. I feel like it's already been laid to rest. It's like it's exactly like when people blamed violent movies for causing violence back. Oh my gosh, so ago. Uh, I feel like it's just at this point, there's really nothing much else to say other than just really, like, is that really the? Are we really going back to that? Are we defaulting back to video games? It's not even a niche part of our society anymore. Like as far as like the amount of people that play video games, it is a stupid amount of people on this planet, that play video games regularly. It's, it's not like back when this debate was really happening back in the, early 2000s, after games like Grand Theft Auto, the original, came out, Grand Theft Auto 2, Halo, Call of Duty was really like, Call of Duty 3 and all that stuff was coming out. Basically, it was and Doom and Quake had already been out for a while now. Games are really starting to look a little bit better as well. Um, Back when this debate was really firing up, uh, it gaming was more of a niche activity. Kids played games. Um, some older people played games. It was still pretty niche. Gaming was not as hugely mainstream as it is today. And I feel like back then you could have had a you could have had a proposition that, oh, because there wasn't enough time to have a valuable sample size to see, okay, are these really affecting people? and now we can pretty much safely say no. There have been too many. There have been so many uh, like actual studies on behavioral changes from video games, and none of them lead to violence. So, I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but
I think that the best study into this isn't done by a major study group, and it's done by MatPat at Game Theory. He put out a video. Um, Forgot what it was, but basically at the end of it, he said, "I need your help. I'm doing a study, and I want you to like fill out if you play video games, which you probably do. I want you to fill out this survey, um, and I want you to figure out like I just want you to answer these questions as honestly as possible, like your favorite game and your play style, and then you had to take like a personality test along with it." He had, I think it was there was something that he talked about in his follow up video where he talked about the results, um, where he said he like looked up all of the biggest studies ever done, and his was he had the biggest sample size out of any study that had been done like in a medical field ever, because he utilized like YouTube and like his subscriber base. That's off the point. The point is it's a massive sample size, which is something for a topic like this we haven't seen before.
the people who watch those videos tend to be people, and even took or people who took the time to take the survey, probably people who are quite into video games, play them.
But he basically said that like with personality you can kind of see like through the personality test you could see like some connections between like you could see connections between like certain personality types were like played more aggressive and certain personality types played more like supportive. It was super cool because he basically said at the end of it like yes, there are some weak links, like there are some links between them, but they're so weak because you have so many outliers. Like it's like he didn't draw a graph, but he basically said like if you drew a graph like putting all these personalities together, they wouldn't make like that like strong of trends. And so that was his thing saying like video games don't cause violence, was because he was basically saying something along the lines of like there's so many other factors that go into it that it doesn't like video games can't cause violence because of how many outside factors there are. And I think one of the factors of it is just overall mental health. I think that that's something we just don't stress enough in this country. It's something that I'm like super passionate about. I mean, like I don't follow like I don't like look up like tips to improve my mental health, but like I'm always concerned about my mental health and like where I am like physically, spiritually, emotionally, because I know that like there have been days where like I've just been like super depressed and I just couldn't figure out why.
I think something that's definitely overlooked in this country is uh like mental health as opposed to mental illness. People people are aware of mental illnesses on the whole, I'd say. Especially now, I think we're moving in good strides to take care of people with mental illness. What people are not realizing, I feel like, is how mental health is something everyone has to deal with. And that, yes, you might not have clinical depression, but you might actually have a like it's not being depressed or like, oh, I'm feeling real depressed right now, man. It's more like you're actually depressed, but you don't have a serious, or you don't have a you're not always depressed, right? It's not a mental illness. You just are in a state of poor mental health, if you know what I'm saying. Which means that I guess it would be fair to say that the mental illness of clinical depression is more like kind of a perpetual state of poor mental health, uh, which is no fault of really the person who has it at all, because of course. it's a mental illness. But
I just think that if you're in a state where your mental health has gone so far down as to being willing to walk into a public area and fire a gun into the crowd, I don't think that there should be anything else looked at first other than mental health, because I don't think any person in their right mind goes to a public area and thinks, what if I shot this place up?
this country's problem with shootings, which it's it's definitely our problem. No one else really has this many. Just it's just a l- it's too many to, and I feel like it's almost insulting to try to toss out something as so simple as a cop out as video games, in my opinion. Not because, oh well, video games don't cause violence. It's more of even it's not that simple. I feel like like as far as mass shooters go, it's it's never ever just one thing that drives these people to go uh, to do something like that. It's never ever like so easy as just to say, ah, it was this, and that made him do it, or it was this. I feel like it's a bunch of things, but I think at the end of the day, it's all about mental health. Um, not even necessarily illness, which it could be in some cases, but even still, I'd say mental illness treatment isn't even where it should be as far as because um, I know there are some countries that have much better mental illness care facilities than we do and solutions to that because uh, I feel like it's just not unless we've done a lot to help with depression, but there are a lot of other mental illnesses that I feel like people just say, just keep them under intensive care, either under house arrest or in the asylum, which for more serious diseases. And what if they're never diagnosed? You know, some parents, a lot of parents see these things if they really care about their child and take their children to be diagnosed. What if people don't like when people don't take their children to be diagnosed and they live their entire life with a mental illness they know nothing about, when no one can really relate with them because they have these issues that no one else can really relate with them because they're trying to relate with people who don't have the issues that they have that they're not aware that they do have, if you know what I'm saying. Basically, there's so many possibilities for these things, and I feel like it's just uh, there's a lot that needs to be done, and I feel like just tossing the blame on something so easy to toss something to blame on is video games, media, movies, something like that. It's just almost insulting to the very idea of these problems. I think something like that's this much of a problem is never a simple solution.
I hate how we oversimplify so many different problems in society. Like I think that's just a general thing, because I think one thing that gets to us with mental health is um like I'm starting to notice this a little bit because we both went to a small school, but now stepping out into like a massive school like Auburn or Alabama, like I'm starting to realize more and more that like in a school this big, I'm just a number for a lot of things. Like I'm not like everything that I do at college is a number. My GPA is a number. My grade for my computer class is a number. Everything's a number. Like everything, because like GPA out of high school determines where you go to college and what kind of scholarships you get. So, and after that, it's irrelevant. And then you also have like we're just such a number based society. Followers on Instagram, Uber rating, Yelp, whatever, you name it. We're such a numbers based society
It literally just reminds me of that Black Mirror episode.
Oh yeah, which oh shoot. I
It's the one
haven't
where you like leave reviews on people, and if you drop below a few stars, then like your societal rank drops. People with high societal like approval ratings or like rank like or reviews are like the wealthy in society, and the wealthy are. It's very interesting. It's like a hyper extremified version of social media, and just people are kind of judged based off of a bunch of set um or a bunch of kind of just numbers and stats that just are paired with their name based off of whether it's school or activities. It's just
well, I'm a strong proponent that they just completely get rid of um like on a very basic level, they get rid of like likes on Instagram or followers or something like that. Because I feel like that contributes to an addiction to social media. When like the next thing you need to get is like, oh, you need to like meet more people, not so that you can get to know them, so that you can gain more followers on Instagram. Because I've definitely met people like that who are like it's kind of like it's like speed dating, but it's with friendship.
yeah, I feel like part of it is that people like watching numbers go up. That is very satisfying, and watching a number go, and then also even when you think about all of those people as like it becomes people just want to see their number go up. And it's not like obviously not everyone cares about it, but um it's a very understandable, I think, and real thing. Uh just having that desire, like just because uh it's almost like how it's like just natural progression. Like people want to see themselves progress. And on Instagram, if you treat it like that, uh it's very easy to try to get on a quote unquote grind for Instagram followers. That people like Instagram is like almost a game, like to get to influencing and stuff.
The entire concept of an influencer is, I think that's like what sums up this entire, let's say 5 years. I want to say decade, but I don't really want. I think that that's not fair enough. Let's
No,
say the
it's more of a
past,
recent thing.
yeah, like this, like starting in 2015, and I think it's just only going to continue to go up as we like progress through, um, like the years. Like 2025, I feel like influencers will still be growing. Influencer is such a millennial, like this, like generate millennial Gen X or millennial and Gen Z kind of thing.
It's really just, I think what an influencer is the product of people realizing that people who have a platform to speak and people who listen to them are a great business tool. And it's always been that way as far as like marketing and sponsorships, like for athletics and stuff. People are like, wait, there's an entire subset of people that listen to what one person says or greatly value the opinion of one person. Why don't we get in contact with said person and get them to promote our product? And that's how you have an influencer. Someone who you can certifiably, based on their subscriber number or whatever, say that they have influence on a group of people sizable enough for us to want to engage in business talks.
Yeah, but I think there's a ton of like with everything you have goods you have good things and bad things about everything. I think one of the things that's been good for influencers is I think there's well not necessarily good for influencers. I just think there's a lot of like good influencers. I think that like people like I think the name that comes to my mind first is somebody like Casey Neistat and Linus Tech Tips. Those are the two that like first come to my mind because Casey Neistat is a more traditional influencer in the sense that like he is an ex professional. Still a professional filmmaker, but he's an ex like HBO filmmaker, and he makes YouTube videos talking about whatever the crap he wants to talk about. But he doesn't flex. He doesn't like. Okay, sometimes he does flex. That's unfair. it's unfair to say that the people that are influencers don't flex at all. But um, it's so interesting to see like his outlook on life, or like Dan Mace. Dan Mace is one of his good friends. He's doing a project right now where every single week he's flying to a different country and he's fulfilling somebody's dream for them, which I think is super cool. And he's also like high quality filmmaker. Like he spends time on all of his videos. Like it's a super cool idea. That's kind of like the general like good influencers I think about are people like Casey Neistat and Dan Mace. I think somebody who's a good like tech influencer is somebody like Linus Tech Tips or like Marquez Brownlee, because I feel like they're really knowledgeable at what they do, and they have opinions that yes value, but they're also generally pretty accurate. Like if I needed to learn something about a particular like technology subset, I'd probably go see if Linus Tech Tips or Marquez Brownlee had a video on it. Because if they did, like they probably know more about it than I do. I think the problem you run into is when you start having influencers like Lele Pons or Rice Gum or Jake Paul, people who their influence is over like business. So like it's always about the next best thing they have, or it's the next funny video that they make. It's just one giant like
The people they're influencing are not people that I think it comes down to those specific subset is just I'd say I'd liken it to when you see those ads on kids channels marketed towards kids. They're aiming at kids to get their parents to spend money on them.
but that's the crazy thing is I think I've talked to you about this a little bit, but there are a ton of laws that are like very strict about advertising to children. Um, I know I've talked to you about this before.
Yep, yep. Because they've only been sanctioned on like TV and stuff, and as far as official marketing stuff, all this influencer stuff kind of goes under the radar because technically you can't prove that that's the audience that is there, but most people, pretty much everyone knows that that's the audience. So, is that people are they like at the end of the day, if you're trying to market a product, you want to be able to get it to the people who you are trying to market that product to, and you go where they are already going to be. And more nowadays, it's not they're not you're not finding them on TV, you're finding them on YouTube following influencers. And that's where if that's where they are, like the kids are, that's where the marketing team goes.
So some of the
So,
for those who are listening who don't know what we're talking about at all, um, just go over a couple of the basic ones. The first one is that there has to be a very clear divide between what's an ad and what is the content. So that's why if you're watching like Disney Channel or whatever, they always have that message that like we'll be right back after this message or whatever. Or like you see that on like basically any kind of like TV broadcast. You see that all the time. Influencers are technically breaking this because their entire video is an advertisement for their product. On
they
top of
don't
that,
make that distinction.
exactly, and kids are far too young to understand that like there is a difference. Like this person, okay, so an example of this: when I was like 7, there are these shoes that came out that had a ball in them. It was like a bouncy ball. The bouncy ball did jack squat. Like it did nothing. But they advertised it like one, it would look cool, and two, it would make you jump higher, I guess.
Oh, oh,
You know
oh
exactly what I'm
man,
talking
I
about.
actually remember exactly what you're talking about.
So I remember these shoes came out, and I expected them to make me jump higher, and so I begged my mom for these, and I was like 7. Like I was like far too young. Like I was seeing this on like billboards, and it was because I had not been accustomed yet to like what advertising was, and that like there are actually like bad people in this world who like advertise stuff that doesn't actually exist.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call them bad people. More of it's more of people want to sell products. It's hard to distinguish between a recommendation sometimes and a straight up advertisement if you don't know the distinction yet. And when you're that young, when you've got someone who you laugh at every day, you watch their videos, when they say, "Hey, you should buy this product," also sponsored by them, you don't know what sponsored means. All you know is that favorite YouTuber number 50 says, "Hey, you should do this," or they're repping these companies. See, you want it's basically these people end up being idols or mentors, or really more of idols to these kids, and of, as one would assume, to be like them. And whether that means getting their like the same type of clothing styles and stuff, it just ranges to all of that. So
The thing I experienced with those shoes was that I eventually got those shoes. I think I got them for Christmas or whatever. And I was overjoyed. Like, this was like the best thing that had happened to me. Like, I had these shoes. I was going to be able to jump higher than all my classmates. And I put them on, and I had this placebo effect that, like, I very vividly remember that, like, I actually could jump higher. But, like, it was all placebo. I had a different experience because I had seen, like, I'd seen the advertisement that said, these shoes will make you jump higher. I thought my 7-year-old brain couldn't comprehend that it was an advertisement, like they were trying to sell me it. And so I thought, if I have these shoes, I'll be able to jump higher.
you assume that it would be able to work because they said it would be able to work.
Exactly. Then I got the shoes and I put them on, and because I've already assumed that they're going to work and that I've been told, and everything that I've been told so far has been true in my mind, that by the time that like when I put them on, I'll be able to jump higher. No, like there's like you could put like there's like the crap. There's like the spring shoes. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the stilts that have springs in them, so you can like,
Yes,
you know what I'm
like a
talking. Like,
pogo stick.
yeah, it's like a pogo stick, but you wear it like a shoe.
Huh.
Anyhow, that's off topic. Point is, those actually exist. But my mind, when I had like envisioned these shoes, I had seen them as like this is this is the next, it's basically the next step in human evolution. Like if I have these shoes, like if I have these shoes, I'll be able to jump higher.
I'll be a part of the new subset of the human race.
Exactly. Good old
I'm the
Jurassic Park.
future. Yeah.
But I put them on and I jumped, and I had this placebo that I had already jumped higher. And I remember very vividly trying to prove to my mom that I could jump higher by putting on the shoes and jumping, and then taking off the shoes and putting on my old shoes and jumping and not jumping as high. And I'm pretty sure I just got laughed at. Point is, I wore them to school and tried to show off, and then all my friends looked at me like I had 4 eyes, like, you're retarded. And I could, like, it was all placebo. But I think in the same way, that's what's happening with, like YouTube merch, and like just YouTube influencers like Jake Paul. Let's use Jake Paul because I hate Jake Paul. Like he's selling his merch, and they're like, "Oh, I want to be as cool as Jake Paul." Jake Paul wears this, which he also conveniently sells on his own website. Maybe I should get that so that I can be cool like him. And because I want to see a counter of how many times Jake Paul says merch is linked in the description in one
Oh,
video.
see, that's not the real challenge, John. The real challenge is actually watching through a video that long enough to count them all. That's the real challenge.
Well, we're resorting to memes now. I think that means that our main topic of discussion
We
is over.
really went from the StarLadder to mental health to bouncy shoes.
This is gonna be such a successful podcast, man. Dude, we could just
Or people are gonna be like, wow, these guys are probably the weirdest people on the planet of Earth. Like, and also the most tangential people on the planet of Earth. Can't y'all just talk about one topic? Jeez.
yeah. since we were talking about advertising, we don't have any social media right now that we can say like, go check us out on whatever.
Nah, just hey, we'll make more episodes, I think. So, yeah, we might eventually have some things if this actually becomes something that is watchable to people. If that's the case, then maybe we'll have some actual things related to our podcast other than the podcast itself. So,
Yeah. So if you like
well,
this podcast, uh, give it a
yeah.
5-star rating on iTunes, like the video on YouTube, subscribe.
If you actually ended up watching this whole thing, you're pretty cool and also a little bit of a madman because I don't even know how long this is, but I feel like it's at least an hour and a half of us just talking.
If you made it through this long listening to us go on random tangents, you are a true gamer, and I am incredibly thankful for you because this was fun.
We
Yeah,
at least enjoyed it, so hopefully, if you're still here, you enjoyed it as much as we did. So,
please stay. Please listen to the whole thing.
I
Yeah,
think we can call it with that.
yeah. Like the video on YouTube. Rate us on Apple. Does Spotify have anything like that for podcasts? I don't know how podcasts on Spotify work.
I've never listened to a podcast on Spotify. I only listen to them on Apple, YouTube, SoundCloud.
Yeah, we're just publishing it to Spotify because why not?
Maybe someone on Spotify will look at it. Like, I don't know, freaking Michael Bublé come out here and watch our podcast. I don't know why I said him of all people. I literally don't think I've heard a Michael Bublé song in actually 10 years.
All I'm saying is, if the real Michael Bublé comments on our YouTube video, we'd like to have you on the show.
Hey, that's our long-term goal. If this thing even continues, get Michael Bublé to listen to our podcast. Long-term goal. If he listens to our podcast, then we will know we've truly made it.
Indeed.
But until then, small-time podcast by two college students right here.
Indeed. Dude, we went on a tangent on the conclusion.
Oh man, that's classic.
We need to end this. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.